If you're looking at the feeds, Haifa's port is burning, and the missiles? They're still coming. In the last 6 hours, Iran has launched its most coordinated strike package of this entire war. We're talking about ballistic missiles slamming into Tel Aviv's industrial heart. At the exact same moment, drone swarms are targeting Haifa's military zones. This isn't a random escalation. This is a precisely engineered operational sequence. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what Iran just did, and why what happened in the last 6 hours is more significant than almost anything that came before it. Let's get straight into the details. 2 cities, 2 different weapon systems, 2 different target categories, all timed to arrive within the same 40-minute window. Why? Because it forces the air defense to split. It stretches their response capacity across the maximum possible geographic spread. This isn't a random escalation, and it isn't an emotional retaliation. This is a precisely engineered operational sequence that Iran has been building towards since the first day of this conflict. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what Iran just did, why Tel Aviv and Haifa were chosen as the simultaneous target pair, and why what happened in the last 6 hours is more significant than almost anything that came before it. Let's get straight into the details. Tel Aviv was hit with a combination of K-Bar, Shechan, and Sejil-2 ballistic missiles. These aren't just dumb rockets. They were aimed at 3 specific categories of infrastructure. The first was power relay and transmission facilities on the eastern edge of the city. This is the same type of target that Iran successfully struck back in Wave 54, the one that caused the 11 million person blackout the world watched unfold in real time. They want the city dark, still, and silent. The second category was the roads, specifically the highway interchanges on the northern approaches to the city. If you hit the interchanges, you slow down the fire trucks. You slow down the military resupply, you paralyze the movement of assets inside the city. The third category was communication, cellular towers and fiber routing facilities serving both civilian and military networks. They want the city dark, still, and silent. But Haifa? Haifa was hit differently. And understanding why is the key to understanding Iran's actual strategy. Haifa's port is the most significant maritime hub in Israel. It is the primary entry point for military hardware, defense system components, fuel, and industrial goods. Everything that arrives by sea, from replacement Arrow interceptor components shipped from the west to the fuel-keeping hospital generators running, it all comes through Haifa. But Iran didn't send heavy missiles at the port. They sent drone swarms. Now, why drones? Not because they're weaker, but because they're better suited for port targeting. Drones are slower, they can loiter, they can navigate between structures and weave into specific facility zones that a ballistic missile, with its steep terminal trajectory, simply cannot reach with the same precision. Drones are the right tool for destroying crane systems, fuel storage tanks, and the dock infrastructure that makes a port function as a logistics hub, rather than just a piece of shoreline. Now, before we look at the multiplier effect of this strike, I have a quick request. If you want the deep dive analysis on this conflict that you won't see on the nightly news, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is Undercurrent, and we're tracking this story as it evolves every single hour. Your support helps us keep the analysis independent. Let's get back to the strategy. So why does the simultaneous part of this strike matter so much? Because at Tel Aviv, the objective is degradation of the city's ability to function. And at Haifa, the objective is the degradation of the supply chain. Hit the city's ability to function, then hit the country's ability to resupply. Do both simultaneously so that emergency and defense resources cannot concentrate on either one. And here is where it gets dangerous. When power in Tel Aviv takes damage, on top of systems already weakened from previous strikes, and when Haifa's logistics are disrupted at the exact same moment, the effects don't just add together, they multiply. Every system that depends on another system is being hit at multiple points. Hospitals already running on backup generators with uncertain fuel supplies are now in a city where the roads used by fuel trucks have taken structural damage. Emergency crews are trying to respond to a fire at the port, while the communication relays have just been struck. Every system that depends on another system is being hit at multiple points. This level of sophistication didn't happen overnight. To understand how we got here, we have to look back, because the evolution of these operations is the story of a military learning and adapting under the most intense pressure any country has faced in decades. When Operation True Promise 4 began on February 28th, the opening waves were all about volume. Hundreds of missiles and drones across multiple countries. The objective back then was demonstration. Show that Iran could reach everywhere. Show that American and Israeli air superiority hadn't eliminated Iran's ability to strike back. Volume was the message for the first 2 weeks. Iran needed to establish that it had enough inventory and enough organizational resilience to keep firing, despite losing over 1,000 assets in the opening 72 hours. Every wave that arrived on schedule was a message that the campaign wasn't running out of steam, but volume was never the end state. Volume was the setup. The sustained tempo of 80 waves wasn't just about direct damage. It was about depleting interceptor stockpiles faster than they could be replenished, establishing a psychological rhythm of alert cycles in the civilian population, and creating an operational baseline. By the time Iran introduced the Sejil 2 against the power grid in Wave 54, it was deploying a new weapon against a defense system that had already processed hundreds of engagements. The interceptor reserves were measurably lower. The missile was more effective in Wave 54 than it ever would have been on day 1, precisely because 80 waves of sustained pressure created the conditions for it to succeed. The same principle applies to what we're seeing tonight in Tel Aviv and Haifa. This strike is more effective now for 3 reasons. First, interceptor depletion. Israel's Arrow interceptor stockpiles are at a fraction of their pre-conflict levels. The Western resupply effort, while running at max capacity, hasn't closed the gap. When Iran sends missiles at Tel Aviv and drones at Haifa in the same 40-minute window, it forces a prioritization choice in a defense environment where interceptor scarcity makes every decision consequential. Second, psychological saturation. Civilians in these cities have experienced weeks of continuous alerts. The protocols that were followed with discipline on day 1 are followed less automatically now. Response times to shelters are longer. People are tired. They are exposed. Third, cumulative infrastructure damage. Each successive strike lands on systems that are already degraded. Full restoration requires components and construction capacity that the active conflict makes impossible to deploy. Each new strike on a wounded system causes damage that is exponentially harder to repair. Iran is hitting infrastructure that is already bleeding. Let's talk about the weapons again, because the choice between ballistic missiles and drones isn't arbitrary. Ballistic missiles are fast, high energy, and perfect for hardened targets like power nodes and highway interchanges. They are difficult to intercept at the last second because of their speed. They're expensive, but the kinetic energy they deliver is worth the cost for those high-value targets. Drones, on the other hand, are cheaper and more numerous. They can saturate air defense through sheer volume, but more importantly, they can loiter. They can circle a target area for minutes, waiting for an opportunity. They can navigate around obstacles to hit the specific controllers of a crane or the power systems of a dock. Iran used the right weapon for each target set. That operational sophistication was developed over 80 waves of trial and error. Think about the bigger picture for a second. Israel is a small country with a large military, but it has very limited domestic production for the critical things it needs. Jet fuel, raw materials for weapons, electronic components for defense systems, all of it comes through Haifa. There is no alternative at this scale. Haifa is the logistics lifeline. If those drone swarms successfully damage the port, the consequences compound over time. A crane that takes a direct hit isn't replaced in a week. Fuel tanks that burn require weeks of cleanup. The reduction in port capacity means that those interceptors being shipped from America, the fuel for emergency generators, it all arrives more slowly. And arriving slowly in a war of depletion is the difference between closing the gap and letting it widen into a chasm. Iran's planners understand this global dimension. They understand that every strike on a port, everyday oil stays above $100, adds economic pressure on governments far away from the battlefield. This affects ordinary people everywhere. If you're in Europe or Asia, you are feeling this war every time you pay a bill. Iran is shaping the strategic environment through economic pressure on electorates. The US reaction has been immediate. American air assets have been redirected to hunt drone launch platforms and missile transporters. Intelligence sharing has been intensified, but the hunt faces a fundamental constraint. Iran's launch infrastructure is distributed across a territory the size of Western Europe. Mobile launchers move constantly. The hunt hasn't been decisive. Iran is still launching, waves are still arriving, and as we speak, Tel Aviv and Haifa are still burning. The diplomatic track has taken another massive hit tonight. Pakistan's mediation effort is now in jeopardy. When missiles are hitting two major cities, the political condition for any government to sit at a negotiating table becomes impossible. The Israeli public is not a public whose government can talk about back channels. The domestic pressure on Jerusalem to respond overwhelmingly is at its highest point since this began. Trump's public statements have been declarative, saying American forces are engaged and that Iran will face severe consequences. But the gap between that public language and the operational reality, a gap we've seen throughout this conflict, is especially stark tonight. This strike tells us where the war is heading. Iran has moved from demonstrating volume to demonstrating strategic evolution. An Iran that systematically targets the power grid, the communications, the maritime hubs, and the roads, all in one coordinated package, is pursuing a theory of victory that doesn't require a single decisive blow. It requires steady, cumulative degradation of everything that allows a modern state to function. Israel is a resilient country. Its people are resilient. But resilience has limits. Interceptor depletion is real. Logistics disruption is real. The human cost is accumulating. The people of Tel Aviv have adapted. They've built routines around the sirens. But from Iran's perspective, that adaptation is a problem to be solved. They want to break that sense of normalcy. By striking two cities simultaneously at night, they are trying to create a moment so geographically inescapable that the entire country feels surrounded. That feeling isn't accidental, it's engineered. The next 72 hours will determine the response. It will be real, and it will be significant. But the fundamental asymmetry of this war won't change overnight. The production lines won't catch up by morning, and the port damage at Haifa won't be repaired by next week. What burned tonight wasn't just infrastructure. It was the confidence that even the most sophisticated defense system ever built can protect a modern country from a campaign of this kind indefinitely. Stay with this story. The next move matters more than any that came before it. I'm Josh for Undercurrent. Thanks for watching.